mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington.
Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. It's Monday, April 10th. This is Africa 54.
Pope Francis leads Easter Mass before thousands of faithful in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. Muslims observe the holy month of Ramadan with customs that include sharing iftar with travelers. And former U.S. President Donald Trump faces a multitude of felony charges. Will that derail his run for the White House? We'll have a report. All that and much more coming up on today's Africa 54.
We begin our broadcast in West Africa, where the killing of Cameroonian journalist Martinez Zogo earlier this year brought into focus the threats members of the media face. VOA's Jackson Vunganyi and Salem Solomon have the story.
Haman Mana, publisher of the Cameroonian daily newspaper Le Jour, is haunted by his last conversation with friend and fellow journalist Martinez Zogo.
He said he's scared about to be killed.
Yeah. He was worried for his life.
He was worried for his life. And he told me, when they will kill me, they will kill you too.
Zogo, managing director of radio station Amplitude FM, had been receiving death threats for several weeks. On January 17, Zogo sensed he was being followed and headed to a police station hoping for protection. He found none.
The gates were closed. Police would not allow him in, and he was dragged out of the car by 4 hooded men.
On January 22nd, Zogo's naked and mutilated body was found near Sahel, a suburb of capital Yaoundé. Mana said he was so badly disfigured that his wife struggled to identify him. Police arrested several people, including media mogul Jean-Pierre Amogu Belinga, whom Zogo had reported on, and members of Cameroon's DGRE intelligence agency. Known for his connections to the cabinet of longtime President Paul Biya, Belinga rose to prominence in the 1990s. Since Zogo's killing, investigative reporters have looked into allegations that Belinga used his own media empire to promote his interests and threaten critics. Now he is charged with complicity in Zogo's torture. Belinga's lawyer has denied the charges and says the arrest is unlawful. A bail hearing is expected later this month. But even with swift arrests, the killing reflects a wider concern over press freedom in Cameroon, with journalists facing harassment, arrest, and intimidation. Members of Zogo's family, too, say they are being threatened. Quintal says acts of violence against journalists are intended to silence the press.
We need to ensure that there's some sort of accountability and that those who have killed him are held to account. Because unfortunately, when you silence a journalist for good, but you also silence others around who are scared.
As police investigate Zogo's killing, advocates are pressing to ensure justice for the journalist and protection for his family. Salem Solomon with Jackson Mvunganyi, VOA News.
Pope Francis on Sunday helmed the celebration of Easter Mass before tens of thousands of faithful in St. Peter's Square with a traditional speech about troubled places in the world. The pontiff spoke about the processes of peace and reconciliation ongoing in Ethiopia and in South Sudan and prayed for an end to violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Francis also asked for consolation to victims of international terrorism, especially in Burkina Faso, Mali, Mozambique, and Nigeria. He asked for comfort for refugees, deportees, political prisoners, and migrants, especially those who are most vulnerable, as well as the victims of hunger, poverty, and the dire effects of the drug trade, human trafficking, and all other forms of slavery. Hundreds of Christians in Zambia celebrated Easter, the most holy holiday on the Christian calendar, which commemorates the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Some churches were full of activities coupled with special services, prayers, and thanksgiving to mark Easter. It was time to do business and make ends meet as well. Daniel Tonga reports from Lusaka.
Easter is a time to remember the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Like in other parts of the world, Christians in Zambia celebrated their redemption during the Easter period. Easter celebrations were characterized by night prayer vigils, preaching and singing. Easter church service was the most significant activity for Christians. To some Christians, this year's Easter was different after COVID-19 pandemic.
This Easter is different from last year because remember we are coming from this COVID-19 pandemic, which actually hindered us from celebrating fully the past 2 years. So this year is very special because people are free. As you see, the church is full and we are having celebrations to the full. Whereas last year and the previous years when COVID-19 started, we had a lot of restrictions.
While Zambia has many churches that follow different Christian customs and traditions, the central message among all during Easter was that Jesus Christ died and resurrected.
For us Christians, it's very important that the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, when he died on the cross of Calvary, he took all our sins away and he gave us an assurance to us to believe in him and to trust in God. When he died, he rose again from the dead, which showed us to say Jesus is God and is Lord, our Savior. So that's why we celebrate Easter.
You know, this is a period where Jesus Christ died and furthermore resurrected. And this is important for every Christian. Why? Because he still reminds us to say in whatsoever that we might be going through, Jesus Christ is still with us. He never died on the cross. He's alive.
While some Christians were celebrating Easter, for some people it was business time to make ends meet. Despite the economic challenges Zambia is facing, some believe it was important to celebrate in both good and bad times.
You know, our only hope is the Lord Jesus Christ. Whether the economy is good, whether it's bad, we have to anchor our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. We have an anchor that keeps us home. You know, hard times will come and go, but the word of God shall remain and stand forever. So it's important for us to continue celebrating and remembering that is our hope forever.
Easter period is significant to Christians because they use this period to commemorate their redemption through the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's ended up being a time of reflection on the meaning of Jesus' death and for some, time for business. Daniel Tonga, VOA News, Lusaka.
To celebrate Easter, internally displaced people attend a mass, sing and pray at a camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, dozens of people gathered in a makeshift church to celebrate Easter and temporarily escape their daily struggles.
When we were at home before fleeing, we lived well. We could even wear new clothes. But despite that, today, God gave us the grace and the strength to celebrate Easter. Because we are healthy, we have forgotten the suffering we are going through, and we celebrated our Easter without a problem.
In the past year, nearly 1 million people have fled violent conflicts perpetuated by rebel groups in eastern DRC.
Furaha yetu ni kwamba sikukuu ambayo tunachunga hapo mbele ya Pentecote.
We wish to celebrate the next coming feast, Pentecost, at home. May God help us and guide our authorities and military so that they finish this war in Kibumba, everywhere in Rutshuru, Rugari, and Buhumba. And we can return home. We have faith it will end, but our hope is towards God, that his miracles will be wrought, so that we can celebrate Pentecost at home as usual.
The displaced people are living with little to no access to water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities in makeshift shelters in Goma and its surrounding areas. The M23 rebels have also attacked and seized control of several villages near Goma. Despite these challenges, Clementine Bruno, a mother of 5, prepared cabbage to celebrate Easter with her children in the camps.
I am preparing the cabbage for the children to celebrate Easter. This is all that God has given to us, and we thank Him. But when we are at home, we ate meat, we also took wine, and the children were happy. Thrilled, but as we are in a camp of displaced people, it is challenging. That is why I prepare cabbage, because it is the one I found.
Poor living conditions in the region has triggered a cholera outbreak in North Kivu province, which has claimed the lives of more than 600,000 individuals since January, according to the United Nations. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Despite Sudan's economic woes, Muslims are observing the holy month with customs that include sharing iftar with travelers. Sid Ahmed Ibrahim spoke to residents in Khartoum and has this report narrated by Africa 54 managing editor Vincent Makori.
Cars rush past as young people spread carpets for prayer. And this is what the streets of Khartoum look like moments before Muslims in the city break their fast with an evening meal. Sudanese people observe the holy month of Ramadan with special rituals that include decorating the streets and preparing food. A resident of the Al Daim neighborhood says it is customary for men to break their fast in the streets.
It's one of our customs to gather and break the fasting in the streets daily during Ramadan. The purpose of this practice is also to share food with people who might not be able to reach their destination on time. These are rituals celebrated for decades all over Sudan.
Economic strain, residents say, is also felt in the streets. They say there is a lack of basic staple foods, including the wheat flour used in asida, a common dish in the Arab world, and other food items people depend on during Ramadan.
It's clear that the prices are increasing. Everything is increasing. We thank God for everything, even though we have to adapt to that uncertain economic situation in the country, which makes us suffer to meet our daily needs. The prices of the meats are settled, but the vegetables are not. We don't have a choice except to be patient and help each other with our non-Sudanese hospitality.
Ramadan remains a special month for the Sudanese who strive to preserve its rituals and uniqueness. For Sid Ahmed Ibrahim in Khartoum, Sudan, I'm Vincent Makori, VOA News.
Muslims across South Africa are also observing Ramadan with prayer and fasting. Some see the holy month as an opportunity to reach out to those in need within their communities. Zahir Kasim has more from Johannesburg.
In Fordsburg, a predominantly Muslim area in Johannesburg, the streets are quiet during the day, as fasting for the holy month of Ramadan is well underway. But Imam Shanil Kasim, principal of a school for underprivileged children in Cape Town, is hard at work. He makes his way from store to store looking for donations. Kasim says that is the spirit of Ramadan, or a way to build up Iman, a demonstration of faith and good deeds in Islam.
Ramadan is a blessing for us. You know, it's not about starving ourselves. It's not about staying away from food and drink. It's building up of Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings everything to a standstill and remind us, listen here, this is Iman. You must try to uplift yourself spiritually.
Non-profit organizations in the city, such as Islamic Relief, also collect food donations for those in need. The organization provides food to more than 1,000 families across the country, but members say economic troubles limit their work.
Groceries that used to cost 300 rand last Ramadan are now almost double, 600 to 700 rand. And that also being said, the amount and the costing of the hampers and you know the food aid that we also distributing has also increased because of the economy. So the economy has taken a toll. The need is definitely it's increasing, I think, every day rapidly.
But the price increases haven't stopped the festivities. Shalimar Delights is an institution in Fordsburg specializing in sugary confections known as sweetmeats. The store gets busy closer to iftar, sunset, with Muslims wanting to end their fast with a treat. Musa Ayami has been a cook for 8 years. He is currently fasting but manages to get orders out without feeling any temptation to take a bite.
But it's not so hard because you see when you're fasting, or also God in it, He give you risk more. Again, power also you can be you have, so you can tired. You can make whatever you want, no problem.
Ramadan is a time for unity, compassion, and solidarity. The acts of giving back make the holy month even more meaningful. Zahir Kasim for VOA News, Johannesburg.
A South African court is expected to decide Tuesday whether tens of thousands of Zimbabweans living in the country will be allowed to stay or face deportation. In 2009, the South African government introduced Zimbabwe exemption permits, known in short as ZEP, to legalize Zimbabwean nationals living and working in the country. But authorities have stopped renewing the permits and announced a June deadline for Zimbabweans to either get a critical skills permit or leave the country. The political and socio-economic problems in Zimbabwe have driven many of its nationals to seek refuge and better opportunities in South Africa. For more on the plight of Zimbabweans in South Africa, I'm joined by Blessing Zulu, a VOA Zimbabwe reporter. Blessing, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine.
Now, with a deadline looming so close, just about 2 months, what options do these Zimbabweans in South Africa have?
They don't have much of an option, really, because most of them were in South Africa seeking political asylum, and then they were told to abandon those applications for asylum and be part of the Zimbabwe exemption permits. But now they are being told that it's coming to an end, June 30th to be precise. So if they lose this court case, of course, this is not the end of it. It starts tomorrow and ends Thursday. But if they lose, they can still appeal, but it is an uphill task for Zimbabweans.
You know, Blessing, a section of Zimbabweans there in South Africa say they fear returning home because apparently they voted for the opposition. What are you learning as you cover this story?
Yes, we have been talking to a number of Zimbabweans in South Africa. They are a bit worried that the situation in Zimbabwe has not improved a bit ever since they left. And of course, they have a legal leg to stand on. If you look at what the World Bank is saying, that 49% of people in Zimbabwe are in need of food assistance. Unemployment remains high, around 90%, because most Zimbabweans are now in the informal sector because formal employment is not that good. Of course, the government considers the informal sector as employment when they calculate their employment rate. Therefore, the government will tell you that unemployment is 10%. But if you look at the trends in the world, how it is calculated, you discover that 90% of Zimbabweans are actually unemployed.
Now, very briefly, what's the position of the International Migration Organization? Because I understand that they should be involved in a situation like this. Do we know what their position is at this point?
Yes, the Director General of the IOM, Mr. Antonio Vitorino rather, actually met President Mugabe and President Cyril Ramaphosa on the sidelines of the African Union Summit, and he agreed that there will be President Mnangagwa, rather, President Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, and they agreed that the IOM was going to assist Zimbabweans who wanted to go home. And of course, Mr. Mnangagwa has dispatched his team of officials from various ministries to ensure that Zimbabweans go back home.
Thank you so much, Blessing.
Thank you.
Blessing Zulu is a VOA Zimbabwe reporter. South African police say that a convicted murderer who faked his death to escape prison has been arrested in Tanzania following a 2-week manhunt. South Africa's Justice Minister says officials are traveling to Tanzania to begin the extradition paperwork on Thabo Bester. Bester, 35, was dubbed the Facebook rapist as he used the social media platform to lure at least 2 women he was convicted of raping. He was also found guilty of killing one of the women. Bester was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2012, and it was reported in May last year that he died in a fire in his cell. However, nearly a year later, an investigation showed that the body found in the cell was not his. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the charges and defense of former U.S. President Donald Trump. Stay with us. In other news, gunfire was heard in at least 2 towns in Ethiopia's Amhara region on Sunday as thousands protested against a federal government order to integrate regional special forces into the police or national army. According to residents, members of the Amhara special forces in Gondar fired their weapons into the sky all night in defiance of the order. In the aftermath of Cyclone Freddy, which pummeled southern Africa in February and March, floodwaters in Mozambique have created a fresh threat from cholera. Cholera cases have nearly doubled in 1 week to 19,000 amid a shortage of health facilities, many of which were badly damaged by the cyclone. And amid a changing, modernizing world with climate change threatening his home, Senegalese singer, songwriter, and activist Baaba Maal releases Being, his first album in 7 years. The genre-crossing album showcases traditional African instruments along with futuristic electronic sounds. Following former U.S. President Donald Trump's arraignment in New York on 34 felony charges, his lawyers have begun working on his defense. This is just the first of several investigations that Trump faces and that, according to some experts, could have very serious consequences for him and his political future. Veronica Balderas Iglesias has the details.
How will former President Donald Trump approach his defense after being indicted in a hush money case and brought before a court to hear the charges against him? That's not something that his lawyer, James Trusty, was keen on disclosing while interviewed on ABC's This Week. But he did speak about Trump's overall mood.
Anybody that gets targeted by federal investigators, by New York prosecutors, they certainly turn inward a little bit and think this is really bad news, this is terrible for me. But he very quickly pivots to the big picture, the historic picture, and I tend to agree. This is a bad moment for this country.
Trump faces 34 felony charges of falsifying New York business records to conceal that he allegedly ordered hush money payments to a porn actor who had damaging information about him right before the 2016 presidential election. He has pleaded not guilty. The case, put together by prosecutor Alvin Bragg, has no merit in the eyes of former Attorney General Bill Barr.
Falsifying a business record is a crime if it is part of a fraudulent scheme. And I don't see anywhere specified in here exactly what the fraud was. But there are a host of other problems having to do with the statute of limitations, his failure to specify exactly what the other crime was that was being committed that makes this into a felony.
More serious, however, is the federal investigation that Trump faces for having classified documents in his possession, Barr pointed out.
The government is investigating the extent to which games were played, and there was obstruction in keeping the documents from them.
At this time, no more classified documents remain in the hands of the former president, said his lawyer, James Trusty.
We've been professional, we've been ethical, and we're satisfied that there's no outstanding issue relating to compliance with the subpoena.
While Trump remains defiant, substantial fines or even prison time can't be ruled out in other cases related to alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election result and the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Law professor Claire Finkelstein told VOA's Urdu service via Skype.
Seditious conspiracy or insurrection under the 14th Amendment, Section 3, would mean that he could not hold federal office again.
Legal experts say they don't expect a possible conviction and sentencing on any of these investigations to happen before the 2024 election. Trump, who lost the 2020 election, is again running for president. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.
It is our collective responsibility to continue to uplift and empower women change makers. It has been proven time and time again that women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in peace processes as leaders, negotiators, peacekeepers, and peace builders increase the chances of a just and lasting peace. We see this most acutely in Afghanistan, where the Taliban has reneged on its promises to the international community and to Afghan women. The challenges ahead of us are not confined to one country or one region. Over the past year, women and girls have faced violence, repression, exclusion in Iran, Ukraine, and elsewhere around the world. Lasting peace and an inclusive, prosperous society depend on women's leadership and political participation.